Let's talk about one of the most important stories of our time, global child health. Now, this is a story of incredible, mind-blowing progress, but it's also a story of a heartbreaking reality that's still happening every single day. And to really get it, you have to start with two numbers that seem to completely contradict each other.
First up, the good news. And honestly, it is amazing news. Between 1990 and 2018, the world managed to cut deaths among children and young people by 56%. Just think about that. That's millions of kids who are alive today, who are growing up, who wouldn't have survived in previous generations. It's a massive win for public health. But, and this is a big but, it is not the whole story.
Because this was the reality in that very same year, 2018, 5.3 million children died before they even had a chance to reach their 5th birthday. So, how is that possible? How can we be making so much progress and yet still be facing a tragedy on this scale? That is the paradox we are going to unpack right now.
To get our heads around this, we have to start with the most vulnerable group of all, kids under the age of 5. An absolutely staggering 85% of all child deaths happen in this short window of time. This is where the fight for survival is at its absolute fiercest.
But even within those first 5 years, the risk isn't spread out evenly. Not at all. Look at this. Nearly half of all those deaths are concentrated in what's called the neonatal period. That's just the first 28 days of life. It is an unbelievably fragile and critical window. So what are these immediate dangers? Well, we're talking about the most fundamental challenges of just being born. Things like complications during the delivery itself, being born too early or just too small, and the huge threat of infections like sepsis or pneumonia attacking a brand new vulnerable immune system. In fact, having a low birth weight is a factor in up to 80% of all neonatal deaths.
Now, for the little ones who make it past that critical first month, the threats start to change. The biggest killers for older infants and toddlers become infectious diseases, things like pneumonia, diarrhea, and malaria. These three, just these three, are responsible for almost a third of all deaths in this age group. And the real tragedy? In so many places, these are absolutely treatable.
And this is where the gut-wrenching inequality of it all just hits you like a ton of bricks. Where a child is born dramatically, unfairly determines their chance of survival. Over 80% of all child deaths happen in just 2 regions of the world. It's a staggering reminder that sometimes geography can literally be a death sentence.
But, this story isn't just about life and death. For the millions of children who do survive these early years, there are other, more subtle threats that can stop them from ever reaching their full potential. We have to talk about the difference between just surviving and actually thriving.
And a huge piece of that puzzle is malnutrition. It's this massive, often invisible force. Just let this sink in. Malnutrition is, directly or indirectly, responsible for over 1/3 of all deaths of children under 5. It's like a secret co-conspirator, weakening their bodies and making them so much more vulnerable to the very diseases we just talked about.
And this is where it gets really complex. Today, we're facing what experts call the double burden of malnutrition. So on one side, you have undernutrition. That's wasting and stunting, affecting hundreds of millions of kids. But at the same time, there's this growing epidemic of overnutrition, with more than 41 million young children who are now overweight, putting them at risk for a lifetime of disease. And the craziest part? These two problems can exist in the same countries, sometimes even in the same communities.
So as children get older, the landscape of risk just keeps shifting. We start to move beyond those infectious diseases of early childhood and into a whole new set of challenges. Challenges that really reflect our modern world. And frankly, some of them are pretty surprising.
I want you to just think about this for a second. For a child anywhere between the ages of 1 and 15, the single biggest thing that could take their life isn't a disease at all.
The answer is, well, it's a really sobering reflection of the world we've all built.
It's injuries, accidents. We're talking about car crashes, burns, drowning, falls. These everyday dangers are the #1 killer of children aged 1 to 15 around the world. It's just a stark reminder that a child's environment and how safe it is absolutely a critical part of their health.
But the challenges don't stop there. We're also seeing a really significant rise in conditions that we usually just associate with adults. Things like chronic diseases and, maybe most importantly, mental health disorders are becoming major issues for kids and teenagers everywhere.
The scale of this problem is just huge.
up to 20%. That's as many as 1 in 5 children and adolescents around the world are experiencing a mental health disorder. It's this silent epidemic that affects their well-being, their education, their entire future. And tragically, suicide has become a leading cause of death, especially for teenage boys.
Okay, so we have dangers for infants, we have malnutrition, we have injuries, we have mental health. But here's the thing, none of these happen in a vacuum. They are all symptoms of much deeper underlying forces. To really get the full picture, we have to zoom out.
This is the foundation of the problem. Poverty, conflict, climate change, and weak healthcare systems. These are the real drivers. Poverty decides if you have access to good food and clean water. Conflict destroys hospitals and creates trauma. Climate change fuels disease and makes it harder to grow food. And when you don't have enough trained health workers or resources, even a preventable problem can become deadly. Every single issue we've discussed is rooted right here, in these systemic challenges.
Which brings us right back to our central question. That 56% reduction in deaths proves that progress is absolutely possible. We can do this. But the millions of children still at risk show us just how far we still have to go. The real challenge now is to move beyond just preventing death. So, how do we build a world where every single child has a real shot not just to survive their first 5 years, but to actually thrive for their entire lifetime? That is the fight for every future.